Here is a demo of bracket bonding functions in GuideMia Author software. I have created some brackets here. Let's start from the beginning by deleting all of them. So if we go to here, we find all the brackets, bracket extensions, and arch wires. We delete all of them. Now we go to treatment planning page in the workflow. Go, assuming we have done the tooth alignment, we go to planning for fixed. In some earlier version, we didn't quite demonstrate the functions with different options. So this is the latest version. So we go select bracket bounding types, bracket types. There are a couple of here. Let's say we choose DemQ and we choose ADB jigs. We're going to see the jigs. So we also call it bracket extension. There are two ways to apply to create the bracket the first time. We use the FA center, the facial center point, or we use a height from an incisor edge. The difference by default is 4 millimeters. So we're going to use the FA center approach to create all the brackets. So what's going on is we create all the brackets, place them at those positions. Uh, then we are going to make some adjustment. Typically, if you use click a bracket, start positioning it. So you see that's for some reason the initial position is not quite right. But once I click that, it's going to be placed on the tooth surface. We, as demonstrated earlier, if we move the bracket to somewhere else, it's always going to snap to the surface. So this way we can be sure the bracket is always touching the two surfaces. Then always you can use this archwire function to correct the archwire. Then after we create the initial brackets, we use this button to snap the brackets to a same occlusal plane. So basically, it starts with the center point, but move the attachments according to the orientation of the plane. We don't move the attachment to the plane, but just by the orientation. You can notice after we finish this operation, the brackets positions are adjusted. And there are some places, for example, we need to adjust the brackets or orientation and position. Most likely, the reason was tooth alignment wasn't quite good at this time. But we can always, again, click this function to fix the arch wire. We can do the same thing for the lower jaw. Some earlier demo we also showed we can adjust the arch plane. Clicking this, let's do this for the lower jaw. We can click that. We can try to redefine the arch plane for the lower jaw. For this case, if we move it lower, that's about this level. We can see on the posterior side, we need some adjustment. So we move the plane this way. And we can also use this movement tool to make the adjustments. So after we do that, if we feel the plane is about right, we can click on that and we can snap the brackets. I actually bring it back again. There are some situations like this, so we may want to adjust the brackets. It's very sometimes sensitive the orientation of the tooth surface. We can make adjustment. Because the tooth axis is kind of like that. So I need to adjust. Let's see, adjust archway. So this is the same thing we are doing for the lower jaw, and it's a little bit time consuming in terms of moving the brackets to the ideal position. We also show those numbers we can control, so we make mesial and distal the same distance. Then a couple other functions. Let's go one by one. First, let's create a regular bracket bounding guides. So if we go to here, we can show the bracket jig. That's why we call the bracket extension. So in the software, we create an extension. The bracket has the jig has a rod goes into the slots. It can be opened from here. This is something we co-developed with Chinese company. So what we do is we, instead of trying to create a model that a housing model for the brackets, we create this jig. So it can be easily inserted to the brackets. Then let's go design the brackets in two ways. So we go to the guide design page. Say okay. Now we have a preview here, and this plane is how we use to create the brackets. We can see it's initially generated according to the bracket positions. Then we can do, for example, for this case, we do about 1/3 of the arch. We select the tooth range. We click this. That's where we want the guide to cover. Pretty much, we don't need to adjust anything. We make this to cover the tooth area like that. If for any reason we feel this is too thick or too thin, we can use middle button to move it up and down. For example, I move it up a little bit. Then I drag this again. So it's going to update the guide so that the area is lower. It doesn't have to go too high. Then we will say generate the guide. So we design the bracket bounding guide like this. Typically, you can do 3 or 4 sections per arch. And if we really have a physical model of these inserts, we can insert into the guide. You see a slight difference because the guide is the initial position of the model. So if we go back to here to review the models, that's how the guide looks like. If we right click here, we can show the guide in this model too. That's a virtual tissue model. Show the guide is showing up here actually. If we go to the initial step, that's for the height of the lower. So that's a bracket guide sit on top of the model. That's how we design the bracket bounding guide. We call it ADB guide. In order to do this kind of tools guides, you actually need to have the jig. Alternatively, for some customers, we have developed different design of this. For example, we use a traditional orthodontic gauge to create this uh, jig here. If we change the gauge type, the type to also gauge, also gauges, then we recreate the brackets. We will see the shape of the extension or the jig. I will need to do this for all of them. So this is very much like conventional gauge. If we make this one current, we can see it individually. So some customers, they actually have a workshop to make a metal inserts like tool like this, so they can insert this onto the bracket into the bracket slot and insert this into the guide. If you can have somebody make this, it could be easier to handle. Now let's go look at a couple of other things. We talk about adding the anchorage implant. Let's hide this one for now.